Hi, it's very nice to meet you, Dame Silvia Cartwright. It's very nice to have you here. My name is Amelia Corrigal. I will be interviewing you today.
Thank you, Melanie.
So, how do you feel about being back at Otago Girls High School? How's it changed over the years?
It's changed quite a lot. It's much more relaxed. It was quite formal in my day. And I'm looking around this library and I'm dying to look at all the books. We didn't have much fiction in our library. So this is lovely.
How would you compare the culture of today's school to when you were a student here?
It's hard to tell without actually spending a few days here.
Yeah.
But we were very much rule-bound. We had to wear gloves and our hats when we were outside the school gates. We had certain manners and procedures that we had to follow when we were in the school. And we were very deferential to teachers, and they were quite detached from us, not relaxed as it is today.
Yeah. Can you describe the influence that Otago Girls High School has had over your life and career?
Well, it's had a massive influence because I think I got an excellent academic education here, which has stood me in good stead for university and following. And I came from a very poor family that didn't have any middle class knowledge at all. And I used to admire the teachers so much for the way they spoke, the way they dressed, the way they taught us as if they really wanted us to learn. And they became role models for me, where I had very few from my family's social life.
How would you describe yourself as a student at Otago Girls?
Scared. Thinking I was failing most of the time, but in fact, when I look back, I was in, I don't know if you have streams these days, but I was in the top stream and in about the middle of the top stream.
What subject interested you the most and why?
At school?
Yeah, at school.
Definitely English. I loved the literature. I loved the drama that surrounded, the school plays, all of that sort of thing. And I loved the novels that we were introduced to, the poetry, Shakespeare, of course.
Yes.
I won the Shakespeare Prize, the only school prize I ever won. Yes,
That's
unlike all my sisters, I was the failure of the family, but I've still got that to show I can succeed.
Was there any exceptional teacher who had a profound impact upon you?
There were several. There was a very scary but very good Latin teacher, Miss Henderson. She used to come into class and we had desks that had lids and you put your books inside. And she'd come in and she'd go bang the lid, a mow, a mass, a match, like that, till we got the hang of it. But she was a very good teacher, but scary as. And there was a Miss Prisk who went on, she was an English and French teacher, and she went on to be a principal somewhere in Nelson, I think.
Oh,
yes. Yeah. And Mrs. Entwistle, who was also an English teacher, and she actually came from Britain, and she used to tell us stories about how she drove ambulances during the Blitz in the Second World War.
Really?
So she was very exotic.
Yeah.
And very, very good teacher. She used to come into the classroom and she'd say, "Stand up, ladies and others." As she swept in because they wore academic gowns in those days.
Oh, that's awesome. Who were your role models when you were growing up, and how did they influence your life and career?
Well, as I said, my female teachers very much.
Yes.
But then, of course, at university, I don't recall having any role models there. The lecturers all smoked heavily and were male, of course. And
yes.
They didn't really inspire me. But when I became a lawyer, I used to look at the judges that I appeared before, because I did quite a lot of litigation. And I'd look at them and I'd think, I'd never want to be like that judge. They're really, they're punitive or they're sarcastic.
Yes.
Or they're not polite. And it wasn't till we got a permanent High Court judge in Hamilton and I saw how he ran the court. He was courteous. He was quick getting his judgments out. He got the best out of everyone. And I thought, if I was ever to be a judge, I'd be like that.
What inspired you to donate your medals to the school?
boys' schools get all sorts of donations, huge endowments and trophies and all sorts of things. And I thought it would be really nice for a girls' school, especially with the history of my mother having gone here and my 4 sisters and then my niece, that it would be really nice to have my medals go somewhere, because quite frankly, they took up far too much room. But since those medals that you've got here now, I've got the highest Indigenous honour, New Zealand honour, the Order of New Zealand. So I've got that. And that has a whakapapa to it. The person who had it before me, because you have to give the medal back, or your family does when you die, and it goes on to the next person. So the person who had it before me was Dame Catherine Tizard, and she was New Zealand's first female Governor-General. And so I've now got her medal, and it'll be passed on when I die to someone who it fits with too. So it's really nice.
Yeah, that's lovely. Now, this is an interesting one. What are your thoughts on AI in education and society?
Well, it is interesting because I know about AI and I know it's artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
I'm not like the education head in the States who thought it's A1. And I know about education, but I'm not a specialist in either field, so it is interesting, and I'm not going to comment any further.
Fair enough. Yeah. Did you ever envision yourself in the role of Governor-General, or were there any other careers that you wanted?
No, I never did. When I got my first medal, a damehood, after doing the National Women's Inquiry, which was the one where there was a lot of experimentation on women without their knowledge and caused huge health issues for them.
Yes.
And I was made a dame after that. And my sister was sitting in the audience with my parents and my husband, and someone said to her, she's going to be our next female Governor-General. And she told me years later, and that would never have occurred to me, not in a million years.
Yes.
It was a big change in my career because I'd been a lawyer and a judge, and suddenly I had to be this sort of head of state and behave myself and get my hair done. And that was really hard because in the High Court in those days we were still wearing wigs.
Really?
And so it didn't matter what your hair looked like.
Yeah.
In a gown, it didn't matter what you were wearing underneath. You could have your bathing suit on. So suddenly I had to up the ante just a little.
What continues to motivate you, and how do you stay inspired?
I love the work that I do. I'm very fortunate that I get asked to do a lot of really interesting things, and I simply can't resist. I tell my family usually after I've agreed, and they say, you're so stupid because you get worn out and you get stressed and everything. But I really enjoy, especially international law, the impact. Because that's a career that people here in New Zealand don't actually see. It's a second career on top of the domestic experiences. And it's just so interesting to meet all these lawyers and judges from all around the world who are fascinating. And many of them have lived lives that you and I can't comprehend. They might have been fighting on the battlefield against their country being overtaken, and all sorts of things they do, or exiled because they're opposed to a regime, or you've got no idea. I come from New Zealand. I'm just sitting there listening to them, sopping up what they tell me, mopping up what they're telling me. It's so interesting.
Yes. How would you describe your experience as Governor-General?
Well, I always think it was physically exhausting. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And then I had to, because it's a very, very busy schedule that you have, I had 3 roles. There's the constitutional role of being the de facto head of state, representing the Queen in New Zealand, and doing all head of state things. And that entails meeting ministers of the Crown and listening to their views on changes to policy and so on, and advising them. And sometimes they'll ask what I think about things, but not very often. They're quite egotistical, most of them. And they think that you're just there as a sort of ceremonial. Then there's the ceremonial role where you represent New Zealand at major international events like weddings and funerals, Pope's funeral or Prince of Wales' wedding, Ronald Reagan's funeral, things like that. And you go with your hat on and try to look as if you know what you're doing. And also you accept all the credentials from the foreign ambassadors coming to serve in New Zealand. And I did a lot of state visits all around the world. It was just after 9/11, and the government wanted us to be seen as a country that supported moderate Muslim states. So I went to about 10 Muslim states around the Gulf region and into Asia and paid state visits, which means you represent New Zealand, you show your friendship for that country, and they put on a big state dinner and had all sorts of events. It was usually absolutely exhausting. And the third part of your role is community. So you open things and you close things and you do things the government doesn't want to do, but they have to send someone. Like when the Air Force strike force was closed down because it needed too much money invested in it, and they felt there was no need for that part of our defence force anymore. And it was hugely controversial, and a lot of people very upset. So they sent me to the closing ceremony because the Prime Minister was too busy that day. So you get sent to do things that the Prime Minister doesn't want to do.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And I can remember going to Russia once to participate in the big parade they have in Red Square, marking the end of the Second World War, which, much to my surprise, the Russians won.
Really?
That's what they told me anyway.
Oh,
and and I was there for, I think, 2, maybe 3 days, and I flew all the way there, went to St. Petersburg and then on to Moscow and flew all the way back again. And the next day, back in New Zealand, I started investiture ceremonies where you give the medals to, people who've earned Danewoods and so on. And they're always about an hour and a half and then another hour of photographs afterwards. And I'm standing on the stage absolutely exhausted, trying to look as if this is the best day of my life. And my aide-de-camp who'd come with me, she fainted and had to be carried out. So,
oh my goodness.
So I'm tougher than
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy.
Young, fit women.
Oh my goodness.
So it was a very exhausting time.
Yes, of course.
But a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have chosen to do it because you didn't have to use your brain very much because you got briefed. You weren't allowed to say anything out of line. You had to all fit in with New Zealand ink.
As a women's rights advocate, what is your opinion or thought on same-sex schools?
I think it would have been a distraction as an adolescent girl, though I'm sure you get so used to them being boring and stupid that it might not be such a big distraction. I don't know. But I really can't say. I'd have had to have gone to both sorts of schools, but I really liked being in an all-girls school. It was freedom for me.
Yes, yeah. In your international work, what would you believe has had the most impact?
Probably CEDAW, when I was on the committee of CEDAW, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. I served 2 terms on that, and I was the only lawyer for those 2 terms. So I did a lot of the writing for the committee. I'd listen to what they wanted, and then and that has become very influential because that's part of the jurisprudence of the committee. And while I was there, we developed a proposal which was ultimately adopted for what's called an optional protocol to the convention, and that allows someone who has faced discrimination in their home country, after they've done everything they can within their own country court, exhausted their domestic entitlements, gone to court and not been successful, say, for getting the same pay as this man doing the same job, that sort of thing. They can then make an application under this optional protocol to the Women's Convention Committee. And there will be a ruling. That's not binding, but it will be a ruling. And that's been major. And I did a lot of the work to support that. And I'm quite proud of that part of the work.
In your opinion, are law and politics still a male-dominated field?
I think law is much less dominated by men than it was.
Yes.
Much less. It's a a stressful profession for a woman, because unless you're very careful, you take on the emotional stress of your clients' problems, along with trying to work out the legal issues. And a woman is more inclined to do that than a man. And so you have to be very, very disciplined in saying, these are the legal options, these are the possible consequences of that option A and option B. You choose.
Yes.
I'm not going to choose it for you. Here are the advantages and disadvantages. You've got to really keep that distance or you go mad.
Do you have any advice or key reflections for us as students at Otago Girls?
Well, really what I said in assembly this morning, that I've had so many opportunities offered and forced on me over the years, because I was kind of ahead of many of the women legal graduates, so they didn't have many to choose from. And I resisted strongly on a number of occasions, and it just added to my stress load, because I always ended up doing it anyway, because if the Attorney General tells you you're going to do it, you end up doing it. It's as simple as that. So my reflections are that if you are offered an opportunity, or you see an opportunity to do something that you think you'd quite like to do, for goodness sake, give it a go. Don't stress out. And remember what I said, women feel they have to have about 90% of the credentials to do a job, where men think about 50%. So we are too hard on ourselves.
Yes.
Because you do learn much of a new job on the job. Unless you've done the job, of course you don't have all the qualifications. So it's really important to grab the opportunities and to make opportunities for yourself.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you again for being here and having us. Thank you very much.
It's been my pleasure, my privilege. Thank you.
Thank you.